Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive, this time into something that might sound a little bit counterintuitive, the power of stillness in leadership.
Ooh, stillness.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And for this one, we're going to be jumping into an article called True Leadership Starts with Stillness.
Okay.
And I thought this was such a cool article because of a quote from Martin Crowe, a very famous cricketer, who said, "This is the space between thoughts, between breaths, between fielders, between balls. In the gap, there is nothing. And it's that nothing space in which lies the secret to our success and leadership."
Wow.
So I'm curious, how can nothingness be the key to success, especially in leadership?
You've hit on the central paradox of this whole article, really, because
Yeah.
in a world that is constantly telling us to do more, to go, 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 stillness is often seen as, passive or unproductive,
Right.
even weak. But this article argues that actually cultivating stillness is essential for effective leadership.
Yeah. And it seems like we're constantly bombarded with messages telling us to hustle, to do more, to always be on. So how does stillness fit into that picture,
Yeah.
especially for leaders who are expected to be decisive and, action-oriented?
Well, think of it this way. Stillness isn't about inactivity.
Okay.
It's about creating the mental and emotional space for clear thinking and for wise decision making and for authentic connection with your team.
Yeah.
It's about resisting that urge to react impulsively and instead responding thoughtfully.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
It's like hitting the pause button before you reply to that really angry email.
exactly.
That moment to pause and maybe craft a more effective response.
Right. And the article calls that space between stimulus and reaction the sacred pause.
Ooh, sacred pause. I like that.
Right. And consciously creating that space allows leaders to move from these knee-jerk reactions to considered responses.
Okay, so it's not about being passive, but about using those pauses to gather yourself and choose the most effective course of action.
Ex-
But how do we actually cultivate this sacred pause in the midst of our busy lives?
Well, the article talks about a number of practices and things that you're probably already familiar with. Mindfulness meditation, journaling, and spending time in solitude.
So those all sound great in theory,
Yeah.
but how do they translate into tangible benefits for a leader? Someone who's juggling multiple responsibilities and constantly, under pressure to perform.
Let's take mindfulness as an example.
Okay.
The article says even brief moments of mindfulness, like focusing on your breath for a few minutes each day, can have a profound impact on your leadership.
I can see how that could help manage stress and improve focus, but how does it actually translate into better leadership decisions?
It's all about creating space for clarity and insight.
Right.
When you practice mindfulness, you're training your mind to be present and to observe your thoughts and emotions without judgment.
Mhm.
This allows you to step back from that constant stream of stimuli and see things more objectively, and that objectivity is crucial for making wise decisions, especially in high-pressure situations.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Instead of getting swept up in the emotion of the moment, you can take a breath, assess the situation calmly, and then make a decision that's aligned with your values and your goals.
Exactly. And that's where the article's discussion of different types of thoughts gets really interesting.
Oh.
Talks about intentional thoughts, wise thoughts, and appropriate thoughts.
Okay, let's dive into those a little bit further.
Sure.
What are intentional thoughts and how do they relate to leadership?
Intentional thoughts are focused on purpose and goals.
Okay.
They're driven by your values and your vision for the future as a leader. These thoughts help you to set direction, to stay on track, and to make sure your actions align with your overall objectives.
So it's about being deliberate and purposeful in your actions, not just reacting to the latest crisis, but making choices that move you closer to your long-term vision.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, wise thoughts go a step further. They're about seeing the bigger picture, considering the long-term consequences of your actions, and even factoring in the perspectives of others. They draw on your experience, your knowledge, and your empathy.
That sounds like a tall order, especially when you're in the thick of things and, feeling the pressure to make a decision quickly.
Yeah.
How can a leader cultivate these wise thoughts?
That's where the stillness comes in.
Okay.
The article argues that wise thoughts often emerge in those moments of quiet reflection,
Mm-hmm.
in the space between the stimulus and the reaction.
Yeah.
It's in those moments that you can tap into a deeper level of understanding and make choices that are truly in the best interests of everyone involved.
So it's not just about making a decision, but making the right decision, the wisest decision, even if it takes a little more time and reflection.
Precisely. And that brings us back to Martin Crowe and his cricket analogy.
Oh, yeah.
Remember his quote about finding that nothing space between balls?
Yeah. That's where he said the secret to success and leadership lie I'm starting to see the connection now.
He's talking about the importance of finding those pockets of stillness within the action itself. Those moments where you can step back, assess the situation, and make the most strategic choice, even when the pressure is on.
And that's a valuable lesson not just for cricketers, but for leaders in any field.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whether you're leading a team, a company, or even just your own life, the ability to find stillness amidst the chaos is essential for making wise decisions and achieving lasting success.
It seems like we're starting to uncover the truth behind that initial paradox. Maybe nothingness isn't empty, after all. Maybe it's the very space where clarity, wisdom, and true leadership are born.
That's a powerful insight, and it's something we'll continue to explore as we dive deeper into this article.
So it sounds like we're talking about a real shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Also, redefinition of what it means to be a successful leader.
You're absolutely right. The article really challenges that notion that effective leadership is all about constant action and, busyness,
Yeah.
and suggests that true leadership emerges in those quieter moments of reflection and contemplation.
That's a really interesting idea, especially in a culture that tends to glorify hustle and, equate busyness with productivity.
And yet, when you look at some of the most effective leaders throughout history, a lot of them were deeply contemplative individuals who made time for stillness and reflection. Think about someone like Nelson Mandela,
Oh, yeah.
who spent years in solitary confinement, yet emerged with an even stronger sense of purpose and vision.
That's a powerful example. It really suggests that those periods of stillness, even when they're forced upon us, can be incredibly transformative.
Absolutely. The article argues that by embracing stillness, we create that mental and emotional space to connect with our deepest values,
Yeah,
to clarify our vision, and to make decisions that are aligned with our authentic selves.
that makes a lot of sense. It's hard to tap into that inner wisdom when you're constantly, bombarded with distractions and demands.
And this brings us back to the article's discussion of appropriate thoughts.
Okay.
And these thoughts are all about context and social awareness. They're about understanding the nuances of a situation, reading the room, and responding in a way that's sensitive to the needs and perspectives of others.
So it's not just about having good intentions or even those wise insights, but being able to communicate those intentions and insights in a way that resonates with the people you're leading.
Exactly. And that requires a level of empathy and emotional intelligence that can be difficult to access when you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed or rushed.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh,
I'm starting to see how all of these different pieces fit together. The stillness, the different types of thoughts, the ability to respond thoughtfully instead of react impulsively.
mm-hmm.
It all contributes to a more effective and authentic style of leadership.
And the beauty of it is that these are all skills that can be cultivated. The article offers a number of practical tools and techniques for developing mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and a greater capacity for stillness.
Which brings us back to that toolkit we mentioned earlier. We talked about mindfulness and meditation. But the article also suggests things like journaling, spending time in nature, and even practicing gratitude.
Yeah.
How do these seemingly simple practices contribute to better leadership?
They all help to quiet the mental chatter and create space for deeper reflection and connection. Journaling, for example, allows you to process your thoughts and emotions, to identify patterns, and gain clarity on your values and goals.
I can see how that could be incredibly valuable for a leader, especially when, facing a challenging decision or navigating a really complex situation.
Absolutely. Spending time in nature can also be incredibly restorative. It helps to shift your perspective, to reconnect with a sense of awe and wonder, and to tap into a source of creativity and inspiration that's often hard to access when you're stuck in the daily grind.
And what about gratitude? How does that factor into the equation?
Gratitude is a powerful antidote to stress and negativity. When you focus on what you're grateful for, you shift your attention away from what's wrong towards what's right. This can have a profound impact on your mood, your energy levels, and your overall outlook on life.
And a more positive outlook can certainly make you a more effective and inspiring leader.
Absolutely. When you're feeling grateful and optimistic, you're more likely to see possibilities and inspire those around you, and to create a more positive and productive work environment.
It sounds like we're talking about a fundamental shift in mindset, a move away from the always-on mentality towards a more balanced and sustainable approach to leadership.
And that shift, as the article suggests, begins with the cultivation of stillness.
Mhm.
It's about making time for reflection, for connection, for those quieter moments where true wisdom and insight can emerge.
It's about recognizing that sometimes the most powerful action is the pause,
Exactly. And that's a message that's particularly relevant for leaders in today's fast-paced and ever-changing world.
So how can our listener who may be juggling a million things and feeling the pressure to constantly be on start to integrate this idea of stillness into their own leadership style?
It starts with small intentional steps.
Yeah.
Could be as simple as setting aside 5 minutes each morning for quiet reflection, or taking a few deep breaths before responding to a stressful email.
Those sound like very manageable steps that anyone can take, regardless of how busy their schedule might be.
The key is to make it a consistent practice, like any new habit. It takes time and effort to cultivate stillness, but the rewards are well worth it.
I'm reminded of Martin Crow's story. Again, he wasn't advocating for a life of complete solitude and meditation. He was talking about finding those pockets of stillness within the action itself.
And that's a message that resonates with me as well. It's not about escaping from the world, but about finding ways to create space for stillness within the context of our busy lives.
And using those moments of stillness to recharge, to reconnect, and to make choices that are aligned with our deepest values and aspirations.
It's about recognizing that the success and impact we seek actually lie within the power of the pause.
I think you've given our listeners a lot to ponder. It certainly challenged my own assumptions about leadership and productivity.
And I hope it's inspired them to explore the power of stillness in their own lives.
So it feels like we've uncovered a hidden truth about leadership. The path to success isn't always about pushing harder and doing more.
It's about recognizing that sometimes the most powerful action is the pause, the space where we can connect with our inner wisdom and make choices that are truly aligned with our values and goals.
And it's not just about leadership, is it? This idea of embracing stillness seems relevant to so many aspects of our lives.
Oh, absolutely. Think about your personal relationships, for example. How often do we react impulsively in the heat of the moment, only to regret our words or actions later?
All the time, I know I've certainly been guilty of that. A little bit of stillness could go a long way in those situations.
Right. And to think about your own well-being, in a world that's constantly demanding our attention, it's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of activity and lose touch with our own needs.
Yeah, it's like we're always on, always connected, always striving for something. No wonder so many people are feeling stressed and burnt out these days.
Exactly. And the article suggests that by cultivating stillness, we can create a sense of inner peace and resilience that allows us to navigate the challenges of life with more grace and ease.
So it's not about becoming passive or withdrawing from the world. It's about finding that balance, between action and stillness, between doing and being.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that stillness isn't the opposite of action, but rather the foundation for more effective and meaningful action.
I love that idea. It's like taking a step back to gain a clearer perspective, to recharge your batteries and to make sure you're moving in the right direction.
And that's where the true power of the pause lies. It's not about escaping from life, but about creating the space to engage with life more fully and intentionally.
I think that's a wonderful takeaway for our listeners. Stillness isn't about doing nothing. It's about creating the space for wise action and more fulfilling lives.
It's about recognizing that the success and impact we seek both as leaders and as human beings often lie within the power of the pause.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the power of stillness. We hope it's inspired you to find those moments of quiet reflection in your own life and to discover the transformative potential that lies within each pause.
Until next time, may you find peace and clarity in the stillness.